Hi everyone. So this video I am going to show more books and valuable books, and my bookshelves are supposed to go with me everywhere. Where did you get the idea? I was born in the Chinese culture, and as far as I can remember, it was 3 years old, and it was a very clear scene in front of a 20-inch television without a remote. And I was possibly born in the US and brought back as a child, but it's naturalized and I appreciate every day. And let me show you some books. So I put on the bookshelves earlier, the wheels, and the joke is always saying, "Shall we dance?" Yeah, and basically there are many book publishing. How does a book publish, right? According to what I know, there are authors, and then there were the original editions. And when you're writing, sometimes if you are typing and you have multi-screens, a few monitors, right? 1, 2, 3, and in each one you can only see, say, 3 pages or up to 3 pages, right? So 3 page, 3 page, 3 page. That's only 9 page. And then with the 9 pages, you have 300 pages. When you're typing, what if something happens? So it goes back to the computers where there were no modems. So it's going to be happening again, that there might be computers with no modem. So you have a desktop and you basically take out the modem, and that is supposed to be okay. And then with the publishing, you have a editor. Editor helps the writer, or basically inspect the writer, that there's no touchy topics, or say political views, or other words, that might be issues. And then there were editors, and then there's editors-in-chief, and then there's the publishing house, and then there's the printing, and then the printing has to be selecting the paper, and then the size of the book, and then the cover. So there's the artistic editor, and then there is artistic cover designs, and then there is the distributor, and then there's the bookstore, and then there is the royalty. The royalty kind of issues to see how much each book can be having the payoff. So some books that I really like were the DK collection, but I can't carry it with me all the time, so I search online. And this is popularized in I think UK and Britain, in Europe. And then the Oxford series dictionary, and they have many different editions, and it has the CDs and things. Mostly the CDs, and I think the CD is a searchable version, or the clip art, and I usually just have it on standby, and being a part of the office curriculum, or the office supplies. And I want to share with you that this year I had started to scan the magazines and just toss out the paper. But this one was only for internal use for myself. But if the data were stolen and it happened once, then I would stop scanning until the next time. And what I see in these, the news magazines that might be useful and resourceful is the seasonal pricing for each one. And then you see the price go up, then you can ask approximately why. Then they will tell you it's probably the CPI, the GDP of the national statistics. The CPI is consumer price index, and it goes up approximately 3% to 6%. And if anything over, then it is a skyrocketed year. If anything under at the 2 point something percent, that's probably the red line. If anything lower, then there is an indication that there is not enough investors into the region, or lacking confidence. So it's good. And in Asia, if you can get the Japanese and the Chinese to talk about your product or company, then you're okay. And then you can stop competing. Alright, hey, you want it? You know, you want to talk? You want to speak? Yeah. So that's what I am appreciative for. Yeah. And next, other than the news I can scan. Next, you have the other news companies. And then usually in Hong Kong is interesting. They have the news series, and then they have the entertainment news. And then people joke and say, that's like a menu who you might have a eating event engagement with. I was like, how much? It's affordable. But your banker is gonna see your pie chart. I spend 10% of my paycheck on the car, and then I spend another 5% on the insurance, and then I spend 25% with the movie stars, you know, dinner engagement as a group. Oh, whew. Oh. Next, there is the computing that I had to share with some of the Americans fellows out of California to understand the basic needs here. Like I just said, oh, excuse me, the wire. So these magazines are very resourceful to find the earlier years technicians and specialists, and see how they might be interested in newer projects or constructive designs. And always giving some compliments and constructive criticisms. Then you'll be able to improve the stock value or the inventory of each. How do you sometimes see executive officers like us having the extra supplies? Number one, sometimes the inventory from the car shop might be mixed with the motorcycle shops, and might be mixed with the study groups. So don't get angry because it's just a way of seasonal budgeting that some executives might have an extra or two backup and standby swapping on their basic computing needs. And then extra phones is probably because of positions that do not require phones. And then if you be earning a paycheck and be recruited into a position of security checkpoints or government customs department, I mean, imagine, can you look at somebody's passport and answer a phone call at the same time? So that means I can't help you. I can't give you my phone or a copy of my phone. But as you know, students or classmates at your schools, then you can go through the school first. You know, so that's a give and take when you take that paycheck, or if you take the paycheck. All right. And then with the these magazines, I find it so valuable to see the development pace of each nation's computing and telecom. Product introductions and the instructions, they might not be perfected because there has to be a fundamental, okay, there's an introductory, fundamental, advanced, specialist, kind of, and there are stages in between. And then these translated text is at least maybe intermediate, and you might not be able to understand or reiterate or to write your own words or your own steps. So you don't really have to get angry, but you can tell them to show a demo, and then if it doesn't work, then that means your phone is possibly hacked. And don't get angry because you can always live without some of these things. So these are some of the magazines I scanned once, and I knew my files might potentially be hacked, so I sent a link and copy to offices included the Consulate General offices. I don't want to say which one, but the one, you know, that I was educated at, and some institutes. And I stopped scanning after these 3 boxes, just to prove that I was in a leading position in not only computing, but in discovering cultural clash solutions, and of course by computing, since 2016, and I mean 2006 when my passport came. And since then I have not gone back to America yet. So in the immigration status here and the facilities, it's a little complicated because there is the American passport, there's the UK passport, Hong Kong passport, and you might have different routes to go back, right? So I always have traces where I am. And when I stopped using credit cards to go out was approximately 2-3 months ago, and I always have the traces of what they call cash cards. Let me show you my cash cards. These are some of the cash cards, and I was able to keep this one for a long time. And with the cash card, that means it is my own transaction, and then I have cash cards for part-time assistants or domestic helper. And like I said, The reason why there are domestic helper is because the competition or competitiveness of the jobs, the job market, and the payoff and the payout. There has to be some kind of leveling that outsiders have opportunities to come and experience the international investment outcome. And in Hong Kong, always appreciated and still have many appreciating Filipinos domestic helper, Indonesian, some Thai, and Nepalese, Indians, Pakistanians, yeah. So that's how it is. Pondered about something. And sometimes I like these interviews, self-interviews. Of course, if it is asking back and forth, then of course I always appreciate the questionnaires first. So, Hong Kong Magazine for telecom, there is the E-Zone if you want to advertise. And for computing, there is the PCM and something else. Oh, there's the Android magazine. I don't buy it every day because I check up on the US sources, but it is really useful. And sometimes if you look on the Japanese cartoon magazine, the Any Wave or Game Weekly, it is implied that you use telecommunication devices, phone, tablet, PC, or the egg to go online to look at some of these latest issues. And then it's getting kind of cold. Let me wear my jacket. I told you I'm really sensitive with the room temperature. So, and on Saturdays and Sundays, I like the colorful pleats. Yeah. What else can I say about, relating to advertisements? Telecommunication devices don't really only be restricted to budgeting on the advertisement on Gamer magazine or those kind of computing magazine. It can be on anything else. So if you have a small business or startups, you can think about that. Talk about startups. This is my treasure, kind of. So it's the Entrepreneur magazine that I was raised by. Well, not raised by, but that I found at supermarket. And they always have these startups ideas. And then my first startup idea was e-business. And then I had a stack this high. And I didn't have a chance to transport and brought all my collections back, so someone else have it. So I want to say hi to them. And it's not always profitable, so when they gain that much capital, say multi-million per person in that group, I was worried and I kept my mouth shut. I mean, it wasn't shut, but I just kept silent because there were these focuses where I have to do my own progress to prove what I know, and basically I can't help people do their work on their computer. So I did it on my own, and if they have sources to get it and know my progress and you know kind of release, then I hope that there can be hopefully kind of well kind of inter exchanges by words. All right. And let me show you other organizing skills. One of the back in the days, previous and earliest decades, Chinese American youths, estates planning included that the children would have news articles collections, and I was a big fan of that practice. I have these really affordable magazine racks, and you know how people have it this way? I always turn it this way, and that's my habit. I put news articles in there. But sometimes, occasionally, I would snap a picture. My first digital camera was the, I believe it was the Samsung X series, 2 megapixels. And people ask, why is it so low resolution? It's because you can snap pictures of a whole page article and then put it on your computer. So with this said, you can organize your magazine this way. And after you scan it, you can put it back to exchange with your relatives or your distanced relatives, kind of. I have a limit to studying the opposite gender, and it's kind of the soft, area, and that's the red line. And what I like about these is posing. I think that the development between men and women are different in a sense that men one day develop courage to be responsible for their talks and be responsible for their plans and be responsible for their schedule engagements, time engagements, and accept checklists, what they can do or what they cannot. And ladies always have the housekeeping, house cleanliness, the organizing skills, and the sorting skills, same as men. But men often have to ask for advisory from the elder men, and ladies can always get the conceptual understanding and able to work with what they have and just sort files and pay the bills, who hasn't paid the bills, and kind of things. And let me show you one of my collection. One of the biggest books I bought was this one, 1000 classic recipes, and along with this one I bought the hors d'oeuvres. So it's hors d'oeuvres, but it's hors d'oeuvres because I grew up very familiarized with the Chinese dim sum lunch. I said, these dim sum must be machine made, and shocked me, some of them were handmade. I said, oh my goodness, what did he misread? Yeah, so some people have to make dim sums. I'm just kidding. So 1000 classic recipes. And then next, I was always a fan of the Playboy magazine. Not because I'm a Playboy, it was because, not because I'm a Playboy, but, and did you know there's a gang in Los Angeles named after that? So don't say that word. Yeah, on the streets. I bought because I was always looking forward to that benchmark of 16 or 18 to join the services. I always find that men in uniform are very organized, neat, worry-free, and having the confidence with the best equipment among the guys, among the area, and not to force people to do things, but always just confident. And not a supremacy, but a confident, iconic. Yeah, that's the word. So with this magazine, what I liked was, no editing. So back then, if you want to edit a model, you have to use a paintbrush. Say paintbrush, and paintbrush. Whoa, not that one. See, when I see nudity, I turn the page. That's when you know the boys are good. So if you want to edit some of these, right, you have to use a paintbrush to paintbrush, or by layers, clear plastic layers. So I found that Mr. Playboy magazine, Enterprise Publishing founder, Mr. Hugh Hefner, having the focus and dedication and diligence to have upkept one of the most iconic American magazines. And I had really done extra reading on this adult portraits industry, and that it is a time where they had experienced a neglect and pressure, and it was the 1980s, early 80s, early 80s, and I asked why, right? So I looked it up more. It was a administration that they had to experience a setback, not a always forefronted momentum. So in some corporate and some enterprises, if they have a setback, it doesn't mean they don't exist. Their philosophy and their unique vision, that there is a seeking, or there has to be providing to them, then they have these. But very touchy topic. But other than these, right, I always come back to this. Yeah, food. With recipes and reintroductions of scenery. It's not always what you eat, it's where you eat and the lighting and everything. Excuse me. Atlas and maps. Why is it profitable in publishing? Is because there are always new buildings, and there are always a new edition of organizing ways. You see these? Organizing the paragraph and how they introduce. That is very important. So this one is by the Dams and Hudson's printing house, and I always relate it to the Atlas. So this one is in the UK. I want to say hello to everyone in UK in the London area. And the maps are different and illustrated differently in a way of stretching or tightening. And excuse me, I shook the phone. Yeah. So the stretching or tightening, it depends what you're focusing on and what your audiences are. And even this, because the earth is round, yeah, so I have that, the globe. So there is the landscape map and the building map and weather map and oceanic map and fisherman map and climate map and borders map and political map and indications of popularity or statistics topics. For example, cars. How many countries and nations have right-wheel drive, whereas how many countries have the left-wheel drive? Let me illustrate one more time. The left-wheel drive and the right-wheel drive. Not that I'm a race guy, but for the trucks, right? So let's put this aside. Spiritual leaders. It was so shocking to me. One day I might be in a position that people will ask for my chaplain. Can I be my own chaplain? Yeah. It's like the saying, boy, you can have 3 wishes. What are they? Number 1, I want to look always young. Number 2, I want a nice house with AC. And number 3, I want another 3 wishes. It took me a month to think about that one. When I was young. And it was from TV. So, Bible. Have you ever seen a Bible that had extra column? Right here. You can write notes or explaining each verse. So